Welcome back to Court TV Live. We are going back to Los Angeles County, where the district attorney is holding a major news conference on the case of Eric and Lyle Menendez.
You'll remember that last month, attorney Nathan Hochman said that his office is going to oppose a new trial in the habeas track. Well, now he's addressing the resentencing track of the three tracks. The other, of course, is clemency from Governor Newsom. And we're going to pick up his words right where we left off before the commercial break. He's just been comparing the Menendez brothers to Sirhan and saying that basically, hey, Gavin Newsom didn't let Sirhan out after a parole board recommended it back in 2021. These guys are younger, fitter, and they pose a danger to society. So he's not coming out and saying he's going to completely oppose it, but boy, it sure sounds like it.
He's not talking a lot about the differences in the fact that these two are accused of and convicted of killing their parents versus someone who assassinated a senator.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back in, pick up the words of the district attorney of Los Angeles County.
Fear of imminent harm, in essence, that their parents were going to kill them the night of August 20th, 1989. As we show extensively, and just to make this point, that this case is not, or their defense was not about sexual abuse, because I know that issue has come up many times, but about self-defense. I take you to both Eric, Lyle's, and their own attorney's statements. At trial, Eric testified, and he was asked, did you kill your father because he sexually molested you? Answer, no. Did you kill your parents because you hated them? Certainly no, was the answer. Did you kill your parents because you wanted their money? Answer, no. Did you kill your parents as an act of mercy? Answer, no. Why, Mr. Menendez, did you kill your mother and your father? Because we were afraid. What is it you were afraid of? I was afraid of dying. Who were you afraid was going to kill you? My mom and my dad. Lyle Menendez similarly testified as well. And he was asked the question, on August 20th, 1989, did you or your brother kill your mother and father? Yes. Did you kill them for money? No. Did you kill them because you wanted to pay them back for the way they had treated you? No. Why did you kill your parents? Because we were afraid. That is the essence of their defense at trial. It was not sexual abuse. The jury was never asked to render a verdict on sexual abuse. It was all about self-defense. In fact, Eric Menendez's attorney, Leslie Abramson, said, we have never said that because you're abused, you're justified in killing your abuser. We didn't argue that and never will. So the question then is, have the Menendezes exhibited insight into the fact that their self-defense was fabricated? And as we go through the iterations of their defense that they issued from the time that they were arrested until the time that they went to trial, until the present day, what you will see is that the self-defense was the last iteration and version of their defenses. Because remember, the first defense that they came out with was, we didn't do it. That's not us. If you remember the 911 call, if you remember Eric Menendez screaming and crying when the police came out that night, he says to the police, we're going to kill them, referring to the people who had just murdered his parents. We're going to kill them. We're going to torture them. Who would have done this thing? The answer is the Menendezes. But their first iteration was it wasn't them. It was either the mafia or the cartel or the dirty business associates of Jose Menendez. They persisted in this lie, not just the night of August 20th, but kept that lie going for months and months and months. And had Eric not confessed to his therapist, Dr. Oziel, months later, and that confession been taped, and that confession's tape been turned over to the police, they would have maintained it wasn't us. They convinced not just the media, not just the police, but their family and their friends that they were 100% innocent of these crimes. Until eventually these tapes came out, they were arrested, and then they changed to the next iterations. Because the next iteration of the story was when Lyle Menendez gets his girlfriend, Jenae to visit him at prison and says, I want you to testify that my father drugged you and violently raped you, establishing that Jose Menendez was a violent rapist. Jenae refused to do that. So the next iteration of the story was that Lyle Menendez asked Jenae and said to her, well, Eric Menendez was raped by my father, but I was raped by my mother. That's a story that was then repeated to Eric and Lyle Menendez's uncle, Carlos Baralt, that Eric Menendez was molested by the father, but Lyle Menendez was molested by the mother. That iteration didn't go forward. The next iteration that ultimately came out at trial and just before trial was that both boys were molested by the father. But as you heard a moment ago, that wasn't a defense to the charges of first-degree murder with special circumstances. Because you had to add one more thing that the jury was now going to consider, is not just that they were sexually abused, but they were actually in actual fear of imminent harm, of their lives being taken by their parents the night of August 20th, 1989. So self-defense is the defense that they set forward at the trial. But what we show in our pleading is we go through the timeline to show that the Menendezes have basically engaged in not just the ultimate lie of self-defense, but a whole series of lies around it. And they took actions that were both premeditated and deliberate, not just sort of...
All right, L.A. District Attorney Nathan Hochman, clearly not a fan of the Menendez brothers. Remember, he ran against George Gascon, who was the incumbent, who was Mr. Let Them Free. He absolutely wanted to see the brothers out.
And some argue that that was one of the reasons that he did not win.
Yeah, so now Hochman's the new DA. What's he going to do? Flip? This could be more political than legal. Jeffrey Wolf, he's watching along with us from Denver, Colorado. Your thoughts on what we're seeing here and how it is going to make the Menendez brothers' journey a little bit more difficult if indeed it ends with them being freed?
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely seeing the consequence of elections that it has on some of these true crime stories. We saw the same thing happen with Adnan Syed, right? We see these reform DAs come in and they read these stories. They have a heart for some of these defendants, like the Menendez brothers, and they come in, they review the facts of it, they make these motions, but the legal process is slow. An election comes up, somebody runs against them and says there's too much reform going on in the DA's office, there's too much liberal politics taking over the DA's office. The voters come in, they agree for a variety of reasons that is not just the Menendez brothers case, and then all of a sudden the process hasn't completed itself. The voters speak and a new DA comes in. They come right in and they sweep the rug right out from under any number of defendants and cases, including the Menendez brothers. And now here we see this press conference saying, stop the presses. We're not just going to let these guys walk because they were sexually abused as children. And here we are.
Jeffrey, do you find it interesting that they are not going to halt the resentencing, or is that something that they wouldn't be able to put an end to because it's already in motion in the court system?
I think that he made a point at the beginning that the judge has already moved forward with this resentencing hearing, so they can't just tell the judge that the judge can't address this issue, but they're withdrawing their support for it. And so I think that's going to make it harder for the judge to just move forward and say we're going to do this resentencing, because without the DA's support, it's a lot harder for anyone sitting in a prison cell to get resentencing. And so it makes it something that is really hard to just cancel by the DA's office, but it is a lot harder for the defense to move forward and get a resentencing without the DA's office's support.
Yeah, and basically it's down to Gavin Newsom, assuming that this judge doesn't make a bold decision in resentencing and grant it. We shall see, but we're going to get back to Los Angeles after this break. We'll pick up more of the press conference with Nathan Hochman, the district attorney of Los Angeles County, basically saying no, the Menendez brothers do not deserve to be resentenced. We'll pick it up where we left off next.
Skating for over 45 years has taken a toll on my body. I take Cunol turmeric because it helps with healthy joints and inflammation support. Why Cunol? It has superior absorption compared to regular turmeric. Cunol, the brand I trust.
As an emergency room physician, I worked in level 1 trauma centers for years. I know what happens back there. One ambulance after another, with injured patients and lives that are changed forever. I understand. I took care of those people. Thank you. Now, as an attorney, my team and I care for the same people, but in a different way, working to get our clients' lives back to normal. If you've been injured, our medical and legal expertise provides a unique advantage. Ramos Law. What makes us different makes us better.
There are moments when it gets scary.
You hear shooting down there?
And the important thing to do is not panic, be dynamic.
They're here improving their skills for how to get through Russian minefields.
I love that Scripps News gives me the opportunity to go where the stories are. You meet the most amazing people, everyday individuals whose stories take bravery to tell. These are stories the world should know about.
Jason Bellini, Scripps News.
For live reports, breaking news, and headlines from around the world, stream Scripps News.
1, 2, 3, I am proud to be able to be on the first ever HBCU gymnastics team. This is how we'll do it! To be able to show off my talents at a HBCU is very honoring.
Give me something new. I want the real you. That is the best idea I've ever heard.
Yes, of course we can get you more.
Rex, go!
Angus MacGyver.
You know that was fun.
Just give me more.
Celebrity trials are like no other. You not only have the drama of what's happening inside of the courtroom, there's the drama of who these people are. Paparazzi everywhere, people just hoping to get a glimpse. It's something that we haven't seen anything quite like.
A strong showing for the case against Robert Kelly.
There's this balance between the pizzazz of celebrity and the seriousness of a trial in a courtroom, and Court TV gets to bring you all of it.
How prepared is your family if disaster shows up at your doorstep? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan before they show up. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes!
Make a plan today.
You feel that? The NWSL is on ION.
It's game time.
Showing off a little skill now. Yeah! The new Saturday Night Out is on ION starting March 15th at 7 p.m. Find ION wherever you watch.
ION, it's on.
You got us banned from being room parents? I have never been more in love with you.
Who wants to go nuts for donuts?
Show them your folding trick.
I'm not in the mood for your sheet right now. That's gotta hurt, huh?
You keep me coming back for more.
Start watching TV for free with Tablo.
Switching to Tablo has really been a money saver.
With Tablo, I can record something on my phone, I can pause it, I can go get a drink, I can come back, I can continue in the family room.
Order today at TabloTV.com.
Welcome back to Court TV Live along with Julia Jenae. I'm Ted Rowlands. Let's go back to California now. We've been watching this press conference from LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman on the Menendez brothers.
Hochman has said in the past that he does oppose any retrial for the brothers on the habeas track. They are serving life in prison currently for murdering their parents. And Hochman is now weighing his recommendation on resentencing, but already seeming to lean towards not resentencing, especially in the way that his predecessor would have wanted.
Let's head back now to that press conference and pick it up right where we left off.
Immediate responses to their parents somehow threatening them the night of August 20th. We point out that days before the murders on August 20th, on August 18th, the Menendezes drove 120 miles to San Diego to purchase shotguns and ammunition and used a fake ID and a fake San Diego address to make sure that the guns and the ammunition would not be connected to them. The day before the killings, August 19th, they go to a firing range and they find out that the birdshot ammunition that they had bought isn't good enough to kill someone. They're told you need buckshot ammunition in order to actually kill someone, and they buy it that day. Hours before these killings, at roughly 10:20 p.m. on the night of August 20th, Lyle Menendez contacts one of his friends, Perry Berman, to set up the alibi. And the alibi was that they were going to go to Batman the movie at the 8 o'clock showing. And they would be at that movie when the killings would have occurred, and then meet Perry Berman at the Taste of LA event afterwards. They set this up before the killings. Now, during these killings, as we've explained before, these weren't just a situation where all of a sudden the parents threatened their lives, they reached for something and shot them dead. No. These killings, the actual shots, were designed to make it look like a mafia gangland hit. They shot Jose Menendez through the back of his head. They shot Kitty Menendez not only once, which then caused her to go down to the ground, bleeding, but when they ran out of ammunition, they went back to the car, reloaded the shotgun. Then Lyle Menendez took the shotgun, put it up to Kitty Menendez's face, and pulled the trigger. Again, to make it look like a gangland shooting, but that was not enough. They then, while they were dead, shot them in the kneecaps to make it, to complete the picture of what a gangland shooting would be. And at that point, they also had the presence of mind to pick up all the shotgun shells that were lying in the den, because they were worried their fingerprints might be in them. They then called Perry Berman to establish the alibi and went to the movie theater to buy the tickets, only to find out they couldn't buy the 8 o'clock showing because the next showing had already occurred. And Perry Berman had already moved on to a different event, so they couldn't meet up with him. So they took all those shotgun shells, they took the bloody clothing, they go to a gas station dumpster, and they dump it in the dumpster. But now they got the shotguns, what to do with them? They had the presence of mind to drive up to Mulholland Drive and throw the shotguns off the hill on Mulholland Drive. They then went back to the house. When they get back to the house, that's when they made the 911 call that someone killed our parents. And then when the police arrived, that's when they said, as I said before, when Eric and Lyle are running out screaming and crying, and Eric says, I'm going to kill them, I'm going to torture them. Who would do this? Knowing, of course, that it was him and Lyle who had done that exact crime a little more than about an hour and a half beforehand. So you had a situation then where thereafter they engage in this deception, the mafia hoax, the lies to their friends, their family, the media, and the police. And what's interesting as well is the actions they take immediately afterwards. If these were kids that had just lost their parents, you would think the last thing in their mind would be to check on where the will is. But sure enough, within 48 hours, they go ahead and obtain the computer that they believed a new will had been written on, disinheriting them, bring in a computer expert to delete and then double delete all the files dealing with Eric, Lyle, or Will that are on the computer. Go ahead and remove the safe from the family home into a neighbor's home to look at the safe only to determine there was no will in that. And then even go to the bank safe deposit box to go ahead and see if Jose Menendez had put the new will there, disinheriting his sons as he told them he was going to do. So the story again keeps going on, and today Eric and Lyle Menendez, at least from the beginning, fully expected for them never to go to prison because they had successfully convinced everyone that they didn't do it until they spoke to Dr. Oziel. And Eric, feeling the pangs of guilt, feeling even suicidal, talked to Dr. Oziel and basically told Dr. Oziel that they had done it. When asked about why they killed their father, they didn't mention self-defense. Why they killed their mother that night, they didn't mention self-defense. What they said about the father, what Eric said, is that he was a controlling, dominating force, and that is the reason that he was killed. When he was asked about the mother, he said the mother would be a witness to the crime, so she had to die. That the mother was so miserable because the father had had an affair that we needed to put her out of her misery. That the mother could not live without the father, and if we were going to kill the father, we had to kill the mother. What doesn't happen in any of the taped conversations with Dr. Oziel, and remember, he is being brought on by the attorneys to eventually go ahead and prepare a defense to the murder charge. So what they never tell Dr. Oziel in all the taped confessions is that they were in any fear of their life that their parents were going to kill them that night or any night, and that they experienced sexual abuse by the father. So the story then goes on, because once they get into jail, additional lies come up. I've spoken before about the lies that Lyle tried to tell with Jamie Pizarnik about her being violently raped by Jose Menendez. They also...
Hitting the pause button on this press conference so we can bring in our analyst, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. Jeffrey, Nathan Hochman almost seems like he is relitigating the case. He is going at length to make sure people know what the problems were with the case and why they were convicted appropriately. But what do you think about what weight that has on whether or not they should be released from prison?
Well, he's basically, like you said, he's relitigating the case. He's saying this isn't a documentary on Netflix, folks. This is a criminal case that was resulted in a conviction. And here's why. Here's the evidence. Here's what actually happened in the case. And it actually goes pretty well towards why a prosecution would not want to see them resentenced, because it is a case that resulted in a prosecution and a conviction. And so there are a lot of mitigating factors as to why this case could and should be resentenced from the perspective of people who believe that evil is not born, it is bred. That people who would murder their parents because they were sexually abused by those parents don't deserve the same sentence as a random murder that occurs in a vacuum. But this DA's office is saying that there were so many actions taken outside of that by the Menendez brothers that show that they knew exactly what they were doing and that we can't just blame it on that. That gives him at least a leg to stand on for why he is now reversing what the previous administration at that DA's office was doing. And so he's making his case as best he can, but he's doing it in a lot more detail than is probably necessary in a press conference. Maybe he should save it for the courtroom.
Yeah, it's interesting. He really is going all in here and almost putting the pressure on Gavin Newsom, saying, you know, he's saying all the reasons you shouldn't let these two out. And we'll see. Let's get a break. We'll get back and pick up the rest of this press conference over Lyle and Eric Menendez. The current newly elected LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman doesn't want him out.